Good morning to everybody and welcome to the Economic Times CEO Breakfast brought to you by Accenture. I am Alokesh Bhattacharya. I'm Senior Editor of the Economic Times and I will host today's discussion along with my colleague Suchetna.
Hello, everyone. I'm Suchetna Ray. Good morning to all of you. I'm Senior Assistant Editor with the Economic Times. I welcome you all to today's discussion. Today, we will chat with top leaders of India's mining sector, and the topic at hand is Mining Sector 2021 and beyond. Joining us today on the panel are Arun Mishra, CEO and whole-time director, Hindustan Zinc; Amber Timlu, Managing Director, Fomento Resources; VR Sharma, Managing Director, Jindal Steel and Power Limited.
We also have with us D.B. Sundararamam, Vice President Raw Material at Tata Steel; Vinod Kumar, Managing Director, Strategy and Consulting, Chemicals and Natural Resources, Accenture in India; and David Burns, Managing Director, Natural Resources, Global and Growth Markets Lead, Accenture. David, incidentally, is joining us from Melbourne. Isn't that right? David, welcome.
Yeah, okay. So we'll do a short context before we start today's discussion. The economy is back on the growth track. While India is expected to grow more than 11% this year, OECD expects global GDP to grow by 5.6% this year. And IMF's projection is very close at 5.4. Global economic output is projected to turn to pre-pandemic at around Q4 2019 levels in the first half of this year.
These are all expectations, and of course, the trends are pointing in that direction, but there are several variables out there. Most critical one, of course, being the speed of the vaccine rollout in India and in other countries, and the fact that let's hope that no other, really venomous strain of the vaccine hits us. So when the pandemic hit, mining companies globally and in India moved to conserving cash, deferred capital expenditures, and they either halted or slowed project activity.
But overall capital spending in 2020 ended down about 3% when compared to 2019, which is not that bad and much better than some other sectors. Now, in 2021, things are looking up. Government stimulus, strong economic revival in Q2, Q3 are making 2021's prospects quite bright. In fact, globally, 10 to 15% increase in capital expenditure is expected in the mining sector.
Not only globally, in India also, activity has picked up and commodity prices are rising. Sales of metal products, starting from kitchen utensils to cars, they've all increased. Companies engaged in mining activity are seeing a brighter future. Now, that is important for the country's overall growth because traditionally 1% growth in mining results in an increase of 1.2 to 1.4% in the growth rate of industrial production. One direct job in mining creates 10 indirect jobs.
And there are several challenges too that need to be addressed on priority. It is important to re-engineer the process of granting permissions and licenses, unlock reserves by faster exploration and commercialization, address issues such as illegal mining, land acquisition, perhaps reimagine how green clearances are given in this country, and reduce cost of mining through rationalization of taxes and duties.
So it's quite heartening actually to see the government realize the need for urgent reforms and to increase private participation in the sector as it prepares for auction of at least 500 mineral blocks. But as the mining sector leapfrogs into the future, technology will be the biggest game changer. Yeah, and technology not just for business process efficiency, but also for other critical aspects such as safety in the mines and sustainability initiatives. But before we begin this discussion, I will invite Vinod from Accenture for his opening note. Vinod.
So, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Alokesh and Suchetna, for such a great start. I think it's my privilege to welcome all my eminent fellow panelists, Mr. Mishra, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Sundaraman, Alokesh, Suchetna. Thanks for getting us all together here. And my dear colleague, David Burns, joining from Australia. I think we are part of one global network. It's a small network across the mining crescent of Brazil, South Africa, India, Indonesia, Australia, and it feels like one connected team. So great to be here because we are really looking to work in a global world. Incidents in one part of the world impacts another, and it feels so good to be a part of that network, which kind of brings the best practices from one place to another. I think given the pertinence of this topic to India's economy currently, and as you highlighted, Allocation in your speech, it has a disproportionate impact on the GDP, on the job creations, and nothing could be more topical than this in the present time when you're coming out of the pandemic. Before we go to the specific India-specific challenges, I thought that it will make sense possibly to just start with talking a bit about the global trends. And some of these global trends have repercussions from the India perspective as well. Here, I've just tried to capture a few which are most prominent. And the first one of those are advancing the future of mining. We say that future is here. We are already staying in a post-digital era. And everything that we talk about today in terms of enabling the people, reimagining the work, increasing productivity, engaging the community, and enhancing safety and productivity of people are linked some way to the technology. But technology is not an island. It's about taking all the things together to create value and lead the progress. So that's definitely everybody that we talk to, either in the government or the industry leaders, are focused on very clearly digitalization and technology as one of the key levers for us to move forward and create value for the companies, the economy, the society at large. So very great to be in these exciting times when we are living the future actually, and the future is going to get more and more exciting. But what we are also seeing is that it's not the power of one company, because mining operates in the ecosystem of larger players which come together to generate value. We are seeing trends of joint ventures happening across the chain, but we are also seeing how companies are leveraging the ecosystem. Gone are the days when you have one company try to do everything, especially in mining, where no matter the size of the companies, no matter the role that the companies have to play, I think the ecosystem coming together to generate value is one of the key things that we are seeing in the market. And one of the very interesting point here is that the new mines that are being developed today, and the government has, even in India, it's exciting to see how people have started seeing the development of mine right from the beginning, together with the ecosystem partners, right from the inception, leveraging the technology, but bringing all the ecosystem partners together. We'll see more and more of that. Of course, this topic of ESG is more prominent in this industry than, should I say, any other industry. I mean, not just, it creates a lot of value for the economy, for the society, but at the same time, mining has a responsibility, and responsibility towards creating an economy which does not consume more than it gives back to the society, to the country. And that responsibility the leaders of today have to take. And I'm very pleased to say that every leader that we talked about, and every senior leader that we interact with, very clearly focus on, they have ESG as one of their top agendas in their strategic objectives. The question that Accenture has also put forward, and it's a question to the community, that will mining companies be the first movers to hydrogen economy? Most recently, Anglo-American has gone live with a thought process on how they are really transitioning to that kind of economy. And we are very excited to say that mining industry will play a very, very key role in this entire journey in reducing the carbon footprint on Earth. Of course, safety and health has been, and health today in post-pandemic areas, we don't need to re-emphasize, but safety was always a top priority of the mining industry. The additional focus on safety also means that a small disruption can be very big. We have seen that across the globe, but it's very, very important that how do we create a touchless kind of environment at the mine site with the people, with the men, machine, material that come together to work and create the final value. And last but not the least, we are living in a never normal world. And hence the supply chains and mining, we all know, we have been working in this sector. It's not an industry which can switch on and switch off so easily. So it is an industry which has to adapt to this volatility. And I must say that given that the pandemic has shown us the way, in a way to see how you tackle volatility and make your supply chains and your entire operations more resilient. We'll see a bit of that as we go ahead in this presentation. So these are the 5 trends that I wanted to bring to the table. Moving from the global side, I think if we zoom on to India, we have already talked about how important it is. We are a natural resources rich country. And the role that natural resources and mining plays in the growth of the GDP cannot be overemphasized. Of course, the government is promoting policies which will make India Atmanirbhar, self-reliant, and Make in India is one of the key things. mining sector is playing a very, very key role in enabling that entire thing. We are seeing increased participation and investments by Government of India with greater transparency. As somebody says that it's the red tape has given way to red carpet. And I think that's a welcome change. That's the kind of change that we wanted to see all through. And here we are very pleased to see that actually the actions are meeting, the intent that was always there. We have a very thriving end user industry. And I think we are living in a time when the pent up demand has just burst up. I think the key challenge right now is to meet the demand and meet it responsibly and economically. And I think that's where I think mining sector has to see how do you scale up in these times while not taking care of the cost, safety, and productivity issues completely on your radar. We'll talk a bit about it. And of course, pivoting to the new, I think companies have already, the new era is upon us, as I said. But it's very important to see that how are we leveraging this, not just as a nice shining tool in the hands of people, but something which becomes a new way of working for companies and for them to use that to enable people to reimagining work on a day-to-day issues. How does that impact the miners on the ground? Because they are the ones who are actually on the site, creating value day in and day out. How does it enable them? And then enables the companies to meet the growth aspirations as we have seen in the context. So with this, I think background and the responsibility, which also brings in the balancing aspect of economics with responsibility towards the environment, I would welcome you and lead you into this session and would request Alokesh to take us into this discussion. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you, Vinod. So along with Alokesh, there's also Suchetna who will take proceedings ahead. Thank you for your presentation, Vinod. As you mentioned, there are 5 key trends. And as we go ahead with this discussion, we hope to look into those trends and see how they are playing out in India. As far as India is concerned, yes, very positive moves from the government, but we are yet to see whether the intent actually translates into implementation on the ground. I'll take the first question to Mr. Mishra. Sir, Q3, we saw 36% rise in year-on-year net profit. And it was mainly what we saw in your books is that it was on account of strong recovery in metal prices and cost-cutting measures. Now that the economic recovery is clearly visible, what does that mean to your company's prospects over the next 12 months? What do you think are the key challenges? Mr. Mishra.
So the uncertainty that we had in both from Q1 onwards till Q3, although our numbers improved drastically, the uncertainty, I will not rule it out, as I have been saying in all public forum till about FY22. I don't rule it out because we are more worried about the uncertainty than what we were 1 year back. So no amount of vaccines will make us certain that whether newer strains are not coming in or newer epidemics are not going to strike. So why I keep harping on that is we should not give up on the gains that we have made during the COVID time. The learnings that we have taken, the structural changes we have made, there is absolutely no time to relax. We cannot go back to what we were before COVID. So meaning that the changes in cost-cutting measures we have done, the changes in operating regime we have done, use that as a platform and then only build upon that on our future model of business. So on the cost-cutting, we are continuing and absolutely on the focus, whether be it on the power cost or be it on the consumables cost, coal cost. Unfortunately, the sectoral recoveries in various sectors are different. And so although the supply chain is getting connected, but it is not getting uniformly connected. To give you an example, for last 10 days, we are suffering for lack of supply of cement. Suddenly, India is growing in all proportions in infrastructure, all industries are coming back, and suddenly you start feeling shortage of cement in the market and prices have started shooting up. Then you have the coal. Suddenly everybody has started, going up. And now again, the coal prices have started going up. So while the supply chain disruption was the theme last year, right now the supply chains are connected, but they are ununiformly connected and you have newer challenges. Now people are almost ready to pay any price, but get the material. So although you want to hold on to your cost cutting measures, but in your effort not to disrupt operations, you are ready to pay whatever whatever people ask for. So that's what we are seeing now, whether it's the metal prices or consumable prices or fuel prices, everywhere there is a sharp rise, and that rise has to be tackled by operational improvement. And that's where I think what Vinod was referring to, digitalization, is coming in handy, that every industry, including mining, are understanding it is only with huge application of digital technology that you can make operational improvement. The low hanging fruits, which are already over in the last decade, current decade has to be the very, very difficult solutions in operational angle can be done either by applying predictive models, digital twins, experimentations through digital technology, application of automatic process controls, applications of centralized control towers operating multiple plants, multiple mining equipments operated by common operator through tele-remote. Everything which can be done remotely with an expert, one person operating 20 things is the name of the game. And that's how newer areas of cost cutting will come in. The focus has to be there. Focus on HSE health has to be there, but that has to be done differently compared to the way we were doing earlier.
Thank you. That's quite a lot of thoughts and very interesting thoughts. And Mr. Sharma, I'll come to you on this. So, is your situation, you'd say, similar to what Mr. Mishra is saying? Demand is rising, but there are newer challenges. You're using a lot of technology, and if we noticed from your numbers that even last year during the lockdown, there was 100% MOM growth in steel exports from your company, right? And the production was also registering growth. So how are things now, and what kind of performance as well as challenges are you looking at in the medium term, say over the next 9 to 12 months? Mr. Sharma of JSPL.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Mishra and Mr. Vinod. They have already set the stage. Most of the points are covered. We are in a steel industry, and of course, we have done very well during last 10, 11 months time, and especially during pandemic. So thanks to the Indian Railway, and thanks to Government of India, who supported us in terms of transporting iron ore and coal from ports, also from our mines, back to our plants, and then finally finished goods to the port. So we could register our highest growth in terms of EBITDA, in terms of overall tonnage, and also in terms of exports. We will be touching about 45,000 crores of sales turnover this year, despite of pandemic. I would say pandemic didn't affect too much in overall numbers. Rather, it helped us in finding the new markets, new ways, and how to cut down our costs. So we utilized this particular situation, as rightly said by Honorable Prime Minister, that there's always an opportunity in difficult times. So JSPL emerged as a profit-making company after a period of about 6 years of continuous loss. And today we are amongst the top EBITDA generators in the country in our steel sector. I think perhaps either at number 1 position or number 2 position. As far as the challenges are concerned, yes, there are challenges today. We do not own any iron ore mine, but luckily we are located in Odisha and Chhattisgarh. We are in a position to source iron ore from NMDC, from OMC, and also from the private miners in the state. So this is one area. The other area is, fortunately, we have the iron ore beneficiation plant. So whatever iron ore which is unusable or is of low grade, we beneficiate it and we utilize the same into our pellet plants, and we are managing well. As far as the other challenges are concerned, like coal is a big challenge. We are still importing a lot of coal, especially the coking coal. And JSPL has come with a technology, first time in the world, to produce steel through DRI and electric arc furnace route based on coal gasification. So this coal gasification plant we commissioned somewhere in about 2013. But unfortunately, this plant was not working. It was just on and off. Intermittently, it was working because there was no coal available. So we were allotted a coal mine, but that finally this coal mine was cancelled in 2014. So since from 2014 to 2019, the availability of coal was very, very, very less. Finally, we found that over a period of time, Coal India increased their production. When Coal India increased their production, that was a blessing for us. That was a blessing for us. And we found that coal is available in abundance. Finally, we were in a position to run our coal gasification plant. And this gasification plant is having capacity of 225,000 cube per hour. And we are using this syngas with coke oven gas mixed together, and we produce DRI. Right. So this is the first plant in the world producing DRI. So here we are doing the syngas. We are making syngas out of Indian domestic high ash coal, where the hydrogen is 60% and carbon monoxide is 30%. Now we are working how to convert Indian coal into hydrogen. As Mr. Vinod was telling that hydrogen is going to the future tomorrow. We are already working, and hopefully we'll be putting a plant in next 2 years' time how to convert Indian coal into hydrogen. The moment it comes, then it will help us in producing DRI at a very much affordable price and cheaper prices. So in a nutshell, there were challenges and there were opportunities as well. And today, the Coal India has ramped up their production from 600 million ton to about 800 million ton. We expect they should do more. They should produce at least 1.2 billion ton. 20 years back, China was producing 1.8 billion ton, and today China produces about 4 billion ton of coal. So we are, we have the capacity. We have 350 billion ton of coal available in the country, but the resources are not exploited fully. If you don't do it today, then I think in times to come, next 20, 30 years time, the coal will not be used in the world, and this coal will remain buried under the ground. So that's all from my side.
Yes, of course. We'll come to that question a little later, but I'll come to Mr. Ambar Timlo. While we talk about opportunities, we talk about technology, yours has been a question of existence, right? There's been the pandemic, there has been the mining hasn't resumed in Goa. Is there a silver lining somewhere? What are your expectations from 2021? I know the all-important final hearing is underway as we speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, one is the legality of the court cases, etc. But I think the resilience of the Indian entrepreneur and Indian industry to remain optimistic is quite fantastic. So we always look towards a silver lining and say there is one. Goa's had an unfortunate period over the last 3 years because on certain legal interpretations, mining has still remained suspended, an industry that constituted nearly 20% of the economy at the time of the shutdown. And of course, again, this has had nothing to do with environmental matters or ecological matters. It's purely legal interpretation as to when the tenure of mining leases in Goa continue till. It's been a frustrating experience, but what we have seen uniquely over the past 3 years is there's been a consolidation in purpose of the industry. There's not a competitiveness, there's more cooperation. State government, central government, panchayat community, everybody finally realizing that the problem is jointly to be owed and owned and sort of taken forward. So as a result, which we've actually come closer together as an ecosystem, as a community to try and solve these problems. And I think in due course, what that is going to make our industry, at least at the Goa side, far more resilient going forward. I found, of course, just on specifically on the pandemic, at a company level, what we've found is that it's only shown all of us the extent of our fallibility, but at the same time, how small and how interrelated everything is. And what I've actually noticed is that the level of communication and decision making is actually improved in this course of time, because in the past, because we'd say let's meet together or physically meet together, those things would end up getting delayed in process. Now those options don't exist. People meet far more, albeit it be virtually. But at the same time, the intent to take a decision is much, much faster now. So that's a positive. But yeah, talking about Goa, the Supreme Court hearing should be underway today. We're hoping that that will sort of clear the road for showing what I believe to be the two most important things towards the mining industry is tenure and production capacities. So once those things get clarity, then all the other variables can come in place. So we're quite hopeful, and we look forward to a positive result going forward.
Thank you, Amber. In fact, I'm happy to see the 206 people watching us now. So we have crossed the 200 mark, which is twice for what my expectations were. And it's great that this, panel has evoked such strong response. So, Mr. Sundararaman, if I look at Tata Steel numbers, my eyes are like glazed over, right? Whether I look at consolidated numbers or standalone numbers, they're all the same. You have stopped giving percentages. You're saying 4.3x. 2.5x, it's like beyond percentages now, right? So if I look at some numbers that I've got down here, consolidated profit after tax improved 2.4x Q on QOQ and 4.3x YOY, right? Thankfully, your EBITDA increased only 53% QOQ, if I can say that. Right? And even in India operations, the things are phenomenal. You had the highest EBITDA ever, right, in the latest quarter. And so the performance has obviously partially been led by the improvement in the raw material scenario, the rise in the commodity prices, right? The fact that you're able to sell more, the economy recovering. But what is your outlook now for the business of your company? Has the pandemic helped your outlook towards raw material security? And what are, despite all the numbers, the fantastic numbers that are out there, what are still the core challenges that you face?
Yeah, thank you. And good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, David. Yeah, I agree. The sentiment has been up during and after the pandemic. And if I just touch upon the raw materials security, see, Tata Steel has always believed that raw material security is one of our key strategies and one of our key strengths. And this pandemic has reinforced and strengthened our belief. I would give an example, though in quarter 1, the steel plant suffered. The plants at Angul, Kalinganagar and Jamshedpur operated at 50% and between 50 to 60% because our finished goods could not be moved as the lockdowns were announced in the last week of March. So as in many of the countries across the world. But to your surprise, our mining operations didn't stop even for 1 hour during the pandemic, even during the peak pandemic. I would definitely thank the communities who rallied with us during this pandemic, our employees and unions who appreciated our point of view, and also the way the local administration and the district administration, the state governments and government of India supported, because they declared steel as an essential commodity, so as the mines connected to steel. So we never stopped the one. At the same time, as my previous speaker, Mishra, mentioned, that the uncertainty still remains. It's not that uncertainty is over and everything is now going forward. So that, and if I just zero in on raw materials, as I'm mentioning. So in raw materials, what has happened? One is Tata Steel, the way we have been operating, suddenly the agility has come into our systems, and the way generally at least 1/5 of our officers used to be either on air, on train, or on road, meeting customers, meeting people, and meeting stakeholders and all. Suddenly with the digitalization, everyone is connected to virtual meetings and all. We got a lot of time, and the way we took the decisions, absolutely faster decisions, even at senior leadership level, and also communicating to the last person within hours. So through various groups and all that. So that has given a clear cut what is to be done for each and every employee. We are almost 35,000 employees in Tata Steel, and including contract employees, there are another 35,000 people. So this communication, and also the way all our hospitals, even the remotest hospitals at Normandy, Joda, Jharia, West Bengal, we convert them into COVID hospitals with the help of the district administration. So we have given that assurance to our employees in the communities that production is important, but your health and your safety is far more important for us than the production. And ultimately that drove the production. So when they found that our doctors are 24/7 taking care of the entire hospitals, and our HR people, security are front-ending the entire operations. That gave confidence to the communities, and that helped us in seamless operation of our mines. And to just give an example, 100 iron ore, 100% self-sufficiency Tata Steel has always looked for, and we achieved that in the last 9 months or so. And coal, we have 30% domestic and 70% we import. But during this period, almost we increased to 55% of our coal basket. It's a domestic coal and the rest from outside. At the same time, the way Mr. Sharma also mentioned, the railways have been they have been competing with us in agility, and the way they have made the rakes and all available to all of us, and also from the ports, whatever imported coal we wanted to bring in. So all this happened seamlessly, and even the government of India, the way the rules have been changed to suit the operations and all. So these all helped us. It's not that only the corporates have done wonders. At the same time, the entire ecosystem has done really wonder. So that has helped us in increasing our entire profits and EBITDA. At the same time, the challenges are not over. In FY21, though we see that we may end up good results in FY21, but FY22 is going to be much more challenging. Raw material front, though we may see that we may try to increase our self-sufficiency in iron and increasing our coal basket on domestic front. But the way, again, we have seen some surge in COVID cases across the globe. I'm not talking about India. Touchwood, India is still across the world. So those are because as it's globally connected, the concerns and all are still they're there. So though raw material front, I say that things are under control, but we need to see maybe Q1, Q2, we'll get to know whether the prices, steel commodity prices and everything which has been rallied up, whether it is still going to be there or it is going to take a nose down. So these are things, and also some of the global issues which are now Australia, China having the issue, and also these are how they are going to affect that even the raw material prices and all these need to be seen. And the concern, if you express one concern, I say still the logistics is going to be a concern because everyone is increasing production. Almost 10 to 12 million ton of steel is being produced every month. That means we are now going to touch 120 million ton. So all the ecosystem, logistics and all need to be geared up to make it happen. That is what is one of the things which I come to mind. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Sundaram. As you speak about the challenges, we just recently saw that the World Economic Forum has, there's been a shout out from there for Tata Steel, because you used the pandemic to actually innovate, incorporate a lot of strategies to use data analytics better, is what I recently read. I'll come to David with that question. Do you think that COVID has actually accelerated mining companies thinking about innovation and technology, while World Economic Forum only has maybe called out Tata Steel's name, but there's an entire movement towards that happening among mining companies in India as well as globally?
Thank you for the question. I think the answer is universally yes. I think there is no doubt that the terrible situation that's been brought about by COVID has led people to a position now where many things that we thought were previously impossible have now become possible. In many conversations, I deal with clients all the time where things that they had been trying to achieve for many, many years were actually successfully implemented or successfully put in place in a matter of many, many weeks. And I think, you know, there's been a very much a change in mindset around what I would kindly describe as admiring the issue or doing a proof of concept, where many organizations had spent years doing a proof of concept. They suddenly moved from concept to implementation in a matter of weeks. And many of the things that my colleagues have outlined were as a result of that, because technology enabled that to happen. I think the challenge moving forward is we need to improve, perhaps, and it sounds a little counterintuitive, but I think the level of standardization needs to be improved. I think innovation has been good in many instances. Perhaps it could be a little bit of a band-aid, dare I say. But if you're going to truly scale innovation, you need to standardize it. And I think if we look to some of the other adjacent industries, and I myself came out of the oil and gas industry before I joined the mining industry. And I think, I'm not suggesting that the oil and gas industry is perfect and not that they do everything well, but what they are able to do in some instances is to scale innovation, and they have very standardized processes and technology platforms. And then when you can do that, you offer a degree of resilience. And I think that's the challenge for us. It's great that we've captured the innovation. It's great that we've improved performance. We've done a lot of things we've been thinking about. But the question is now, how do we embed that in our business? And how do we make that successful in the medium term?
Right. Do you, Vinod, do you want to come in here and talk about the Indian space, really? There are, of course, forerunners that you see in Tata Steel, in Hindustan Zinc, in JSPL, but do you think that COVID has made a case for faster adoption of innovation to, unlock the capacities, underutilized capacities in mining in the country?
Yeah, no, Suchetna, thanks for that question. I think all my eminent panelists have talked about how the pace or acceleration of the change has only increased. I would just say that it's not about technology as a standalone thing. It's about the human resilience. What we have actually seen in these times are that how people, companies, communities have gotten together to make things happen. I think technology has been in these times more prominent and more important than ever before. But left on its own, it would have not made the differences. I think what we talked about, and I was just reflecting on the comment that Mr. Sharma made earlier, and having the advantage of dealing with multiple companies in the ecosystem, one can see multiple perspectives. It was a matter of pride to interact with some of the executives at Coal India Limited and to hear that all through the pandemic, the people, the miners on the ground have kept our lights up. They have worked hard to increase that production and reach to this level, which will make India self-reliant and self-successful. So I think the key thing that I see here is how everything has come together, leverage what was already there. As my colleague David mentioned, I think it was always about proof of concept. It was always about the art of possible. Now it's no longer the discussion on what is possible. Let's make it happen, because technology is not a constraint. The ability of technology to enable men, machine, material, and the communities was always there. The cost of technology has gone down exponentially. It's important how we apply those. And hence, the pace to implementation is what is very heartening to see, especially in this industry. And the results are for you to see in terms of how. At the same time, I think as my eminent panelists, Mr. Mishra, everybody highlighted, in fact, it's not a time to be complacent about, because uncertainty is still around the corner. So how do we maintain that gain that we have already made and not let an urgent situation impact us into action, right? It's about proactive actions, which is building on this foundation. And I must say, having interacted with colleagues across the globe and India, we see a lot of positivity in that direction in terms of leveraging it even more. So that's a very welcome change, Suchetna, to your question.
Okay.
Thank you, Vinod. And yeah, lots of welcome changes around us. Let's just do a little slightly deeper dive into the future outlook that we all discussed. It looks positive for most of us. Let's take a look at a little bit into the commodities aspect and where we are going there. So for instance, Mr. Mishra, we were just talking just before the panel began, about how zinc prices have spiked, right? Since April last year, it's gone up some 55-60%, even though it's tempered slightly in the last couple of weeks. But what does this say about demand going forward, right? How do you see demand, and how do you manage the production? Because are you ramping up? Because commodity prices also tend to be pretty volatile, right? They'll go up one day and come down the next day, and you're left with excess capacity that you don't that's not meeting any demand. How do you plan for it, and what's your outlook on this?
So as of now, Wood Mackenzie report on the demand per se. Expected globally about 1.5 to 2% growth in zinc demand, and in India the demand will be slightly more, to 2.5 to 3%, assuming that all the steel players, their rolled products which is going to galvanizing, looking at number of the vehicle units getting sold quarter on quarter, that shows a rise. The farm equipment shows a rise in sales. So we always see that about 2.5 to 3% growth in zinc in India will happen. Fortunately for Hindustan Zinc, our 1.2 million ton project almost got over just during the COVID time. So although the we could not take full benefit this year. This year, we should end anywhere between at a metal level of 960,000 tons to 970,000 tons, which will be way beyond what we were pre-COVID. It will be highest ever production even post we became fully underground. And next year looks like we will make a business plan of achieving about 1.1 to 1.2 million ton of metal. So that's the growth rate that we are looking at, year-on-year growth rate. And we look at the cost numbers. We'll see a cost push from the commodity prices, which are going up across the board. There will be quite a bit of pressure on us on the cost side. On the price side, looks like anywhere between 2,600 to 2,700, the play will be there, dollars per ton. It won't vary much beyond that. So we have to have a very, very good innovation drive on the operational parameters. How can we do the operational consumptions lesser than what? There will be huge pressure on environmental norms. Although government will open up, make it easier for the industries to operate and on a self-certified basis. But for the big companies, the moral strength to remain on the right side of the law and remain environmentally compliant and be green is much higher now compared to what it was earlier. And post-pandemic, the entire society's focus on environment has been much higher than what it was earlier. So that also, you will see a lot of investment going into environmental compliances, or improving the reducing the gases emissions. So that we'll see this year. And we will also see a lot of investment on talent acquisition and good talent management. Post-COVID, when the sectoral growth happens in various levels, there will be huge amount of talent flow from industry to industry. So and especially mining industry, which is a difficult industry, and we being most of the underground miners, very difficult to get first-class mining engineers, and that too certified for unrestricted first-class certificate to work in metal mines, are very difficult to find in India. So we will have a double the effort to retaining talent, developing talent, and expose them to the newer technologies of the world. This will be the challenges, but I see a lot of opportunities going forward.
Right, Mr. Mishra. One of the opportunities around the corner as far as the government and their policy is concerned are the auctions that are going to take place. And, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal recently said that he assured actually that reforms in the sector will be carried out to usher in transparency. My question is to Mr. Timlo. So what is the outlook of the private sector to these auctions? Over the years, we've seen tepid interest from the private sector, and we understand why. Because of, what has played out in Goa, finally, that has hurt companies because mining has been stopped. So what do you think about the private participation about mining auctions this time around?
Well, I'll limit myself to the sector we're principally in, which is iron ore.
Yeah.
Of course, as you can see internationally also, the prices for iron ore are at a record high. The way we look at it, the way we look at it is in India. India is such a vast and diverse country in terms of not just the size of it, also the nature of the geological formations of the mineral across the country. The banded formations in Madhya Pradesh are very different from Orissa, but very different from Karnataka. Karnataka is extremely different from Goa. To take the case of Goa, Goa is, we can call it geologically in India, but geographically in India, but geologically it's actually designed to be closer to a steel environment such as China. Because just on a simple cost basis, the cost of transporting from Goa to a steel industry in Karnataka is 2.5 times the cost of transporting from Goa to China. So it just goes to show that a policy which is completely, cannot be that one shoe fits all, will have to be location specific, geologically the formation specific. And on the concept of auction, the difficulty I've always had seeing that when you are auctioning something, you have to have a reasonable idea of what is it that you're auctioning. The size of the deposit, the nature of the deposit. It's easy to auction operating assets, which is what we've seen a lot of in Orissa over the last year and a half, where it's in operating facility, you know more or less what the production levels are, you know more or less what the deposit is, so you know what you're bidding for. At the same time, while the auctions have happened in the last couple of years, the policy governing them has shifted. Initially, they would give out some auctions for captive purposes and then say some can be for non-captive purposes. And now I understand that the ministry is proposing to do away with the differentiation between captive and non-captive, which is an extremely welcome suggestion. But in retrospect, I feel that should have been done on day one as opposed to 5 years, 6 years later. That's one. Two is also there needs to be much more incentive for venture capital into the industry. When I mean venture capital, I mean into prospecting and exploration. And those kind of investments need far more protection than what they're getting today. Otherwise, the reason for people to enhance the knowledge about the nature of deposits, etc., is not going to, no one's going to be really incentivized to do that. At the same time, going forward, I mean, it's encouraging that the government is pushing for the growth of mining, because we always say that India is a mineral giant but a mining pygmy. But at the end of it, we hope that these kind of initiatives by the government actually will, the most important thing, they have to result in operation of the areas. I mean, just or we have to see the numbers on what areas have actually been auctioned and how those have actually been realized today. So all these nuances have to be kept in mind. I mean, again, I'm stating that, I mean, if you take a case of where we are operating in Karnataka, there are other limitations. So presently, because of the Supreme Court, no iron ore from Karnataka can be sold outside the state of Karnataka, other than being sold to a value addition facility in India itself. So there's a limitation to that mining sector on its own. So you will never really unlock the true nature of that mineral, whether it is through an auction or if there are other restrictions. So I think states have to get more involved. In fact, states have to start looking at what is the best proposed way to go about their auctions. But I think in course, I think the government seems to be extremely focused on the growth of the mining sector, and to that we're quite positive.
Right, and we are all positive and hopeful that the auctions will go off well and government reforms will also come into the sector. Mr. Sharma, you are back. I was about to ask where are you gone, because my next question was to you, and there are quite a few questions for you from the audience also, Mr. Sharma. So let me combine my question with theirs and come to you with this. One of the questions Satinder Chadda is asking us from the audience is that steel plants have shown profit, and like you said, you have reached profit after 6 years. So Satinder's point is steel plants have shown profit because steel prices have increased by 43%, right? So what plans does steel plants have to improve efficiency? And the other question from Ashwini Kumar is also directed at you, which says, are we heading for steel shortage in the next few months if the end markets were to pick up? Are there any steel segments where you're facing demand supply mismatches? Right. So to these, my point also is that steel prices have surged, and they've surged like never before. They've surged in China, they've surged in other places. And can this be sustained? Is your profitability only linked to the high prices? Are you doing other things to ensure greater efficiency and make this profitability more sustainable?
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, I agree that the steel prices have gone up. There is no doubt into it, and these are gone up globally. Not only steel prices, if you see the metallic prices like iron ore or pig iron or DRI or pellets, everything has gone up. I remember that in the month of October 2020, the scrap prices were at about $305. And today the scrap prices are around $500 or $510. So there is an increase of about 15,000 rupees per ton in the scrap prices. Similarly, the pellet prices today, 65% of pellet is traded through plants at $260 per ton. It used to be $170. So that is again a $90 of increase, which is too much of increase. Similarly, the iron ore, if you see the $195 is the 65% Fe iron ore in China. And finally, the $172 to $174 the low grade iron ore, that is Fe less than 58%. So this shows that there has been an increase on pan commodity basis, whether it is aluminum, copper, zinc, everything has gone up. Not only the metals or the steel, even the general commodity, the building material, it has gone up. We have witnessed in and around Delhi, in NCR, the industrial land prices have gone up by multifold. So like places in Noida, Gurgaon, Bawal, Sonipat, all this NCR belt, the industrial land prices have gone up by 180 to 200%. And this is what's happening everywhere. The petrol prices, diesel prices, coupled with the coal prices, everything has gone up. During pandemic time, we were buying coal from Coal India at 45 paisa per megacal, and today we are buying at 85 paisa per megacal. So everything is gone up, except the coking coal prices, which were at about $120, then reached to $150, and then again came down to $95, and now it is $114 to $115. So coking coal prices are under pressure, and these prices are because of Chinese embargo on coking coal from Australia. So now coming back on the costs, perhaps I would say the steel industry as a whole in India, they are amongst the lowest cost producer of steel in the world. And I believe JSPL is amongst the 3 or 4 lowest cost steel producer in the world in terms of efficiencies. So now coming back on the shortage, yes, there will be shortage of steel in times to come. Whatever we have done in pandemic time, the whole world, out of the entire population, say about 450 to 500 crore people, they were sitting at home. And the moment they came out, rightly said by Honorable Finance Minister, Mrs. Sitaraman, that this is the pent-up demand which is coming. And this is the pent-up demand we are seeing now. This will take at least 2 years' time to normalize the world commodity market, and especially the steel. It cannot happen overnight. India produced only 99 million tons steel in a calendar year from 1st January 2020 to 31st December 2020. India is having a capacity of 140 million ton. We'll be ending up somewhere in the financial year, maybe about, if you see April to March, same about 98 to 99 million. So we are looking that, okay, next year we should be say about 110 to 115 million ton. But still we are short of capacity utilization. The other area is countries looking to reach to 300 million ton of capacities by 2030. But it sounds very difficult unless some of the financial institutions, they do come for the core sector industry to rescue them. And the greenfield projects are to be avoided. I'm using this word, are to be avoided, because greenfield projects means it will be very, very difficult to balance the ecosystem, to find out the land, to acquire the land, to arrange the railways for them, to arrange the waterways from them, to arrange the power, electricity distribution for them. Very difficult. But it is, on the other hand, the brownfield projects can definitely do much better job. And the people, those who are having 1 million ton of capacity, they can increase to 3 million, 4 million. People, those who are in the micro industries like 200 to 300,000 tons per year, they should reach to 1 million club or maybe 1.5 million ton club. The companies like Steel Authority of India, Tata Steel, JSPL, JSW, ArcelorMittal, the RINL, all these companies should increase their capacities to 200%, I would say. It is not 100%, 200%. So total put together, the big steel players, they produce about 60 million ton. They should reach to about 100, 120 million ton.
Yeah, right. We saw your announcement also about expanding your capacity at Angul, right? Which is in keeping with what you're saying.
Yeah, we are going to increase the capacity to 25.2 million ton in Angul and 12.6 million ton in Raigad. So we intend to reach to about 50 million ton capacity by 2030. And this is what the demand of the day. And Government of India, I'm sure they'll support the steel industry. Because if we don't do now, I'll tell you a very alarming figure. In 2025, we'll be importing steel worth about $40 billion. And by 2028, we'll be importing steel worth about $100 billion. And 2030 will be short of steel, and our import budget will be $130 billion. And you can imagine
to support
Yeah,
the
you can
kind of growth
imagine
that
that
we
what is
want.
going to happen at that time. So there'll be overall shortage of steel. There'll be all of shortage of iron ore, metallics, coal. So this is what's going to happen. Now, what is the answer? The solution is we are in an uncertain world, of course, but there is a solution. The solution is we have to maximize the iron ore mining. We have to maximize the coal mining. God has given us a lot of reserves, a lot of minerals. We must exploit them, utilize them. And then we should think how to convert coal into gas, gas into liquids, gas into power, gas into diesel, gas into petrol, gas into fertilizer, and also gas into DRI and steel making. Tata Steel also planned to put up a plant coal to liquid, and way back in 2010 with Sasol. We also in JSPL we thought
in Talcher, your plan to coal to liquid in Talcher.
But unfortunately these plants didn't come because the coal mines were not available. So my request to Government of India through this platform that Government of India must liberalize the coal mining sector, iron ore mining sector, any other sector, whether it is bauxite, copper, coal, or iron ore, whatever. So that should be liberalized. The people, the NGOs, the local people, they should be pro-mining industry. And then number 3, yes, mining, rightly said by Mr. Bhattacharya, that yes, and also by Mr. Vinod, that mining people will also have to see that the ecosystem is well managed, well balanced, and we must take care of the CSR activities. We must generate employment and we must generate revenue for the nation.
Correct. Mr. Sharma, taking from what you're saying, I'll come to Mr. Sundar Ramam. We're talking about a government and private partnership to unlock the value that mining has in India. So my question to you, sir, how should the private sector now look at partnering with the government to do that at a time when the government is promising reforms?
Thank you. I think it's a very relevant question at this juncture. So before I talk about the private participation, I must appreciate the reforms which the government has brought in last 1 year and more than 1 year. To start with the amendment of MMDR Act in 2015, then all the lapsed mines in March 2020, whatever the non-captive mines which are lapsed, that already they are put in for auction. And many mines have also been auctioned and the production has started. This is a good welcome step. Apart from that, under Atmanirbhar Bharat, many initiatives have been announced and they are underway in May 2020, like commercialization of coal. Now the coal blocks have also been auctioned. So now from government point of view, I think they are also very forward looking and they are very progressive thinking. And now the onus lies on the private sector, how we grab these opportunities. Having said that, definitely when we internally within India, yes, private players are very much interested. That's the reason why there have been active participation in these auctions, whether it's iron ore, coal, or any other mineral. But yes, if you want to invite, if you want to attract investments from outside, then some of the things we need to have global benchmarks. For example, you also mentioned when you were giving the introduction, saying that the tax in mining. Mining taxes are one of the highest in India. Even without taking premium, it varies around 60 to 64%, which is very high. And also some of the interpretations at various levels, like royalty over royalty. So all these things are adding up to the cost of mining. See, as mentioned by Mr. Sharma, it's not that the steel prices are going up. Everything, even all the input prices of steel are going up. So as the iron ore prices and the coal price and all, over and above, these taxes and all are not going to be very attractive for people who would like to invest in India. And also there have been some interpretations with respect to illegal mining. There have been some interpretations with respect to penal interest rates and all that. So though they said the amendments already they are underway, and I think anytime cabinet may approve. So if that is implemented, if those new norms are implemented, I think there will be much more, the mining industry will be much more attractive. And today we are not even 0.5% the mining contribution to India GDP. And I'm very much sure with all these proactive initiatives, we may contribute almost 3%. And the employment generation, as mentioned by Mr. Alok, also the employment generation is going to be huge. For every 1% of employed is going to be 10 indirect. That means almost 25 to 30 million employment generation we are expecting in this. Just to give a perspective of our Tata Steel, where Tata Steel stands in these challenging times. Today, we are around 19 million tons we are producing, including all our plants at Angul, Kalinganagar, Jamshedpur, and we have got Tata Steel long products at Adityapur. So our plan is to move to 25 million tons by 2025 and 30 million tons by FY30. So Jamshedpur, we are planning to move to 14 million tons, 8 million tons at Kalinganagar phase 2, it's underway already, and also from 5.4 million ton to 8 million ton at Angul. So that makes 31 million tons as far as steel is concerned. And coal is concerned, as I said, we would like to be under Atmanirbhar Bharat, we would like to be self-sufficient as possible. So today we are at 30 million tons of iron ore production, all our mines put together, and we have plans to reach to 55 million tons by 2030. So as coal, today we are producing around 5 to 6 million tons of raw coal. We have planned to reach to 20 million tons of raw coal. That gives around 10 million tons of clean coal by 2030. So there has been a good recovery, and also we would like to capture the opportunities which are there. And not only that, we are also we had discussed with Coal India also, how can we increase our domestic coal basket, which I mentioned earlier also. So we are in talks with BCCL and CCL. We can take the coal, we have our washing capabilities, and we can increase our domestic coal so that we can reduce imports from outside. So this is our outlook. And the way I mentioned, that the way the new and recent amendments which are going to be implemented in this MMDR 1957, I think the mining industry is really looking for a big jump, and the private participation is automatically going to happen the way the conditions are there. Apart from this, the major bottleneck today we see is the logistics. Though the private miners and all, everyone is trying to have slurry pipelines and all, because the way generally in the month of February, March, we find that the coal has to be fed to all the, because the summer is reaching, so coal has to be fed to all the power plants. So there is some, you can say, shortage for railways are concerned for iron ore and all that. So all these can be addressed. If all these can be addressed even in the peak months, then I think the supply and logistics, if that is smoothened, that is a major constraint for increasing all these, because all the plants have plans, as Mr. Sharma mentioned about JSPL, so as JSW, Tata Steel, SAIL, everyone has plans to enhance the production capacities and also reach to 100% of existing capacity in next 1-2 years. So that can only happen when we have the ecosystem, whole ecosystem rallies, and the supply and logistics, they get enhanced. So these are some of my thoughts, and I'm very much hopeful that private participation is definitely going to increase in these areas, mining states, wherever we have got mining as a big boom, which I am seeing.
Right.
Thank
so,
you.
and before I come to Mr. Mishra with the next question, Mr. Raman, there is one supplementary question for you. And we have with us in the audience Mr. R.P. Ritola, who is the former CMD of Central Coalfields. And he has asked you a question. And his question is, what is the roadmap of Tata Steel to increase the availability of domestic coking coal, and to what percentage? What impact will it have on the cost front vis-a-vis imported coal?
Yeah, it's if Mr. Ritolia is listening to me, good morning and good afternoon, Ritolia sir. He has been my guru, because after he left Coal India, he has been with Tata Steel for some time, and he has been our guide. So it has been, this has been his concern. Yes, this has been his concern for quite some time, and I appreciate the concern. That with the way Mr. Sharma told, with so much reserves of coal reserves in India, so why should we import it all? First thing is, why should we import it? And the second thing is, why should we import some thermal coal? To surprise everyone, we are importing hundreds of millions of thermal coal as well. Because of logistics, the way Mr. Amber mentioned, it is easy to send to China rather than to send inland the iron ore. Similarly, the coal also, the logistics is a major issue. That's why many shore-based, offshore-based the plants are importing thermal coal. And also, and the contrary to that is, unfortunately, Coal India does not have the washing capacity, so they are using good coking coal. They are giving it to the power plants, whereas this can be used in the steel sector. So we have a definite plan. As far as we are concerned, we are using medium coking coal in West Bengal. It is not prime coking coal, but still our steel plants have modified to stamp charge batteries. So since we are modified to stamp charge batteries, 100% stamp charge batteries, we can use our medium coking coal. And we have tested during COVID time that up to 60% we can have, because this ash is higher. We use almost 18.5% ash, whereas we import 10.5% ash, so that when we mix that, the coke ash becomes around 16 to 15 to 16%. Though it's a bit difficult for our steel customer, but still they are willing to accept this coal. So that's the reason why I told that we are increasing our coal capacity to 20 million tons, raw coal capacity in West Bokaro. And we are also looking for some medium coking coal to auction, because till now thermal coking coal blocks have been auctioned. So we are also looking for some medium coking coal. At the same time, we also had a discussion with Coal India subsidiaries, CCL and BCCL, saying that we have washing capacity. We are willing to buy, or we are willing to also have merchant washing for you, and so that you can also sell the same thing to Steel Authority of India, so that the import can be reduced. So this is our plan. And this, we have a clear roadmap for increasing our coal capacities and also increasing our washing capacities as far as.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure after this event gets over, you can get on a call with Mr. Ritola and have a nice chat with him.
Sure, thank you.
Longer chat with him. And Mr. Mishra, now we would come back. Vinod, yeah, you have a point to make?
No, I think just, while we're talking about the government policies, I think it's also very important to reflect back on some of the things that we discussed in terms of how fundamentally the cost structures, because, external situations will keep on varying, and it's a never normal world. I think technology has given us the capability, as all of us have realized, to fundamentally relook at our cost structures. And that's where I think those across business cycles will not change. I think I've personally had the fortune of seeing how Tata Steel, for example, is using analytics, has been using quite early in the time, as has been recognized by the world, and we have been together in some part of those journeys. I think using the advanced analytics now to take it to the next level is something that will give that cost advantage that will survive across business cycles, and that's very important. Second, I think when we talk of digital transformation, for example, in the context of today, while the changes are happening, I think how do we use the on-ground technologies very, very effectively to seamlessly create value? Because there are islands of excellence, as we have seen, where you deploy the best of machinery, best of equipment, but how does the throughput increase? We talked about Coal India Limited. Right now, I think it's very important. It's not just about putting a new flashy equipment in the middle of an ecosystem which does not support. So people have started thinking about how do we look at the entire chain and increase the throughput of the chain through connectedness across the equipment, using the data to take faster decisions at the right time, remotely, as well as on-site actions, and fundamentally relook at how we leverage the ecosystem logistics, because it's not one company which is leading to that output. So that's on the operational side. I just wanted to reflect on the points that are all very, very, very critical points, and it's happening. On the capacity side, I think it's very, very important that everybody is talking about capacity increase, and it's heartening to see the investments that are coming in, and hopefully that will catapult both the mining and the metal side to the place where India really has to be, the rightful place. But one of the key things in capital projects that we have seen is the schedule risk, the cost risks that always comes with, and there are so many moving parts. I think we have had the experience of working with some of you here as well as globally, to create, let's say, a platform, a digital platform, which helps manage things in a more proactive manner than it has in the past, and giving people the capacity to take decisions ahead of the problem and not a post-facto kind of thing. The reason why this is important is it reduces the cycle to the first ore, to the first steel. And that's so much critical to your plans of whatever we have discussed in terms of what we want to achieve. So these two things taken together, the overall fundamentally relooking at the cost structure internally and externally, and relooking at capacity expansion from the perspective of how do you get to the first production or the first ore faster than ever before using technology, are two things. And we have seen that happen, actually. This is not an imagination, because we have actually lived through it, through connected men, machine, material on the ground, coming together and creating that value. It is only going to get accelerated. I just wanted to highlight that.
Of course, yeah. The aces for, go on, sir. I was going to say that the aces for Tata Steel, both at Kalinganagar and Jamshedpur, are perhaps combining technology with upskilling, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. You want to say something?
Yeah. So the way it has mentioned about it's not the machines and it's not how we operate that. So when we have the discussions about capital expenditure, because all these machines are highly capital intensive. So if you say that I have a requirement of 10 machines I can immediately say that you can use only 7.57 machines and you can achieve the throughputs, because the way technology has now changed rapidly. I would just like to give a small example that we have got the fleet management system, wherein the operator is on 24/7. He is being guided where to dump, where to go and take a load and all that. Not only that, we have, with the help of Command Suite, Command Tracks is there. It also tracks the behavior of the operator. All the 8 hours when he is on the dumper, he sees how he operates the machine, whether it is as per the norm or is there any deficiency or deviation. If it is done, then after observing him for 10 days, 15 days, they give them some points. The system gives him some points. After that, he's taken out, he's put it on a simulator and seen that, for example, he's supposed to use a retarder, but he's using a service brake, which is not safe as far as safety is concerned. So then again, he is being trained and again sent back. So this continuous monitoring of these people, we have seen, not only the productivity has increased, we have seen that the damages of the machines and all have come down drastically. So this is what I just I wanted to echo what Vinod has told. Absolutely, it's right when we say that everyone knows that if you put in more CapEx, you'll get more machines. But is it the right solution? And how can we optimize
I wanted to take that question to Mr. Mishra, actually. The technology, the other side of it, of increasing efficiency, is reducing carbon emissions. And we've seen over the years how at HZL, you've adopted, several cutting-edge technology to meet 2 goals. One is safety, enhancing safety. The other is reducing carbon emissions. So what are the areas of investment for you when it comes to technology adoption?
Correct. So for us, even recently, we have signed an MOU with Epiroc for introducing EV vehicles in the underground. So we recognize the fact that the days of fossil fuel run vehicles are over. It's a matter of 3 to 4 years time when we'll have all mining fleet completely on battery operated, and they will be the order of the day. One, it gives of course, no emissions in the underground mine, and second, it also provides a very good uptime for the equipment. The battery operated equipment will have about 30 to 40% more availability from the fossil fuel and equipment, simply because the lack of transmission not being there, the lack of jerk, the engine noises, vibrations not being there, and so on and so forth. Third will be the battery operated equipment with its own battery source, which provides a very stable voltage supply. All the electronics and the hardware will be very compliant to the digital drive that we are looking for. And that is the way to go for us. And we have already decided to introduce one of the deepest mine in SK mine in the deepmost area to operate the full fleet of battery operated vehicle this year itself. That means loader, dump trucks, what we have cement spraying equipment, Spraymac, Charmac for the support equipment. That one complete fleet will be this year. And then we have a plan in next 5 years time, go progressively to entire battery operated equipment in the mine. And that will be the order of the day. If I look at technology transformation, it's just not digital. It's also the transformation, the way we mine itself. And second, there will be a lot of robotics in underground mine. We are already gone to remote operation of loaders, telemetric operations. From the surface, we can manage operations for quite a distance in the underground mine. But I see automated truck operations and automated loading operations will be the order of the day, and that is going to come in our premises by another 1 to 2 years. And this year, I have a plan of trying out automated truck operation in one of the mines. In one truck, I want to operate and then move on from there, because that will apparently shows there will be a loss of job for operating kind of job, but there will be huge amount of job which will be on maintenance and electronics or what they call in mechatronics kind of jobs that we look at electronics nowadays. So if the jobs quality will vary, they will shift from one sector to another, but more wealth will be created and hence more job will be created.
That's fantastic to know. And, of course, there is always the balance that if you're going to use robots, in the undermine, in the underground and all, then what happens to the labor? But there is also the safety aspect of labor going underground and, getting trapped inside. And we have seen so many accidents happen. My supplementary to you also, I believe that Hindustan Zinc has moved away from open cast and gone into underground mining. Is that an accurate assumption? And why have you done that? Do you think the industry should move towards that?
No, 100%. Only some for the mineral itself. The zinc-laid minerals are mostly deep-seated minerals. So it's ore bodies which will go up to 1.5 kilometer. still not fully explored. With the available technology, what we have explored, about 1 kilometer below ground, we have found the mineral, and beyond 1 kilometer, we have not been able to explore. As we reach to 1 kilometer depth, from there through underground exploration, we'll go further down into the earth. So, and that is where I think so much of discussion on policies. There are two things I will put there. One, it is not so much about to policy. It is more about interpretation of policy when rubber meets the road. And that's what the industry faces. And those interpretation issues need to be resolved. Second, you cannot have one kind of policy for all minerals. Base minerals like ours, which is 1 kilometer down the ground, is just not possible to explore from the surface to the extent you do. And you cannot auction. Today, even if you auction Hindustan Zinc mines, there would be no takers. I have reached up to 900 meters below ground. For me, it is easier to stretch another 200 meters. A fresh cutter has to invest to reach up to 1 kilometer below the ground. It's just not possible. So there are things that are much more complicated as we go to the high value materials, whether you call it zinc, lead, antimony, gold, platinum. For those kind of minerals, we have to have separate policies, separate rules. Bulk minerals, separate rules. Maybe India adopts a full federal structure. Every state makes its own rules for minerals that the state, rather than center dictating rules to all the states to in the same manner.
That's been a long-standing demand, yes, from the states as well.
I think this space to watch out for, and there will be a lot of changes in this space in the coming 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
Right, and the same question to Amber Timlo, Mr. Timlo. Tell us about your technology plans, and also, about the federal point that Mr. Mishra.
I'd like to touch on exactly what Mr. Mishra said about that, because if we look at what the MMDR Act was pre-2015, it actually was more federal than the Act is today. In fact, at that time, it was the state's prerogative to decide whether mining leases should continue or not continue. And now what has happened since 2015 is that decision doesn't lie with the state anymore. So if I have to just give a negative feedback on that point, is that no better person than the state to actually realize at the ground level what is and what is not, especially when they are, like Mr. Mishra talked, there is an operating asset that is substantially invested, not just in the physicality of the mine, but the ecosystem related to that mine, the community related to that mine. So to disturb that midway would not be appropriate. At the same time, certain types of minerals and their formations, you really don't know specifically how that happens until you explore over a continuous period of time. And while you're exploring over a continuous period of time, you realize anomalies, you realize different formations. At the same time, technology is evolving to make what was not ore yesterday, but can be made ore today. And the obligation of any mineral developer has to be to ensure the longevity of the deposit. Now, when you put a physical timeline on a deposit, you actually compromise the mindset of the mineral developer to say, sorry, you've only got this much time, and within that much time, you have to extract a mineral. So if we assume or not assume, since the mineral itself is a public asset, the obligation should be to ensure that it can be harnessed to its best and longest and largest capacity. Keeping in mind consumption requirements, keeping in mind generations to come, equitable distribution, all these things need to be taken into account. And from the federalism side, I think states are in a better position to do that, but that's unfortunately not right now. In fact, recently I think I read it in the ET itself, or there was some talk in the ministry that the central government is saying that the state is having difficulty auctioning in its state. The center can conduct that process, which is another step further away from the concept of federalism.
Yeah. Vinod, you want to say something? Yeah.
No, I
before
think
we come to David. Yeah.
That's fine. Go ahead, Vinod. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just reflecting on the point that, leveraging technology to get everything and the government policies and your point on how, these things are synced up. I think the question that you also mentioned, Amber, and the point that Mr. Mishra also mentioned is how do we run our business more responsibly? Because at the end of the day, no other industry gives so much of responsibility on the shoulders of the leaders to say that it's not about compliance. It's being ahead of the curve, both in terms of thinking about community development, using the latest technology to actually make that happen before it is forced upon us, right? And in that light, I think there are some thought leadership that we have available.
Correct. We'll come to that before we take this question to David. David, we've been talking about another trend, a trend which is catching up globally. It's arrived in India, which is about hydrogen. Your take on it?
Oh, look, I think hydrogen certainly is a topic that's entertaining much consideration and thought. I think there's no doubt that electrification offers significant benefits from both a safety and a ventilation perspective. Okay, but I think hydrogen is really where I see a lot of thinking and consideration being done at the moment. I think it certainly has some challenges, okay, to widespread adoption. I don't think one can deny that, whether that be refining, storage, infrastructure, high production costs. But I think the industry that we're all a part of has got the capacity and the expertise to safely manage and consider the opportunities that hydrogen provides us. I think there's a lot of work to be done. But I think when I look at all of the organisations that I'm lucky to sit here today with, we've certainly got a lot of experience with driving and developing and exploiting, large technological change. I think to answer the question, I think it will happen. I think there are three benefits. There are three major areas where it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a driver in many, many countries around the potential from a carbon reduction, a carbon footprint. I think governments are going to push it quite strongly, particularly in some jurisdictions. Okay, I think the second area that it really can fundamentally change is costs. When I look at our cost profile around power and fuel as being major components, we've talked about cost reduction. I think the argument around productivity, hydrogen can significantly influence. Okay, and I think the third area is really what will drive it also. And we're sort of starting to see that in some instances in Australia at the moment, where you're looking at moving steel manufacturing to the iron ore supplies. I think hydrogen in terms of an energy source for remote operations, for remote locations when you can co-locate adjunct mineral deposits with processing and refining. I think that's the third area where we will see some significant benefits. And I think we will get to the point in the next year where we're starting to see publicly, more and more instances of hydrogen in our operations, whether it be load and haul or actually processing and refining. We're not that far away from that, is my humble opinion.
Right, and we also we have almost run out of time. We are at 11:26. So we got 4 minutes left, and that gives us just about a little bit of a brush with the community aspect. And we'll come to Mr. Sharma. In terms of in terms of companies' contribution to the environment and their impact on the environment and communities and all, we know that the mining industry has been doing a lot for communities that are impacted. But the narrative is slightly different, and the perceptions are slightly different. So we'll can we have a small bit of a little conversation for 5-7 minutes around this aspect and what's your company doing in this area? We'll start with you, Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, sometimes the country feels, or the countrymen feel, that all of the minerals what we have today, there is an equal right of everybody, and they must be consulted before any of the mining rights are given to anyone. Basically, this has to be a very big policy decision. The government of India must come with a right policy that when somebody needs the mines, or in the interest of country, the mining sector is open to the private sector. In that case, government of India must specify as to what is the expectation of the people. I mean, we go for the public hearing, we go for the land acquisition, we go for the environment clearance, we go for the forest clearance, and then finally we try to generate a revenue for the nation, direct and indirect taxes for the nation, and finally the industry is seen with different eyes. and people still feel that they are not doing something good. I think there is a big gap, communication gap or written policy gap in between the doer and the taskmasters. So that has to be clarified. Then not many NGOs or the local people should be encouraged to stop mining or to come for Gherao or Dharna or whatever. I think these are the areas where government must look into if we want to develop the nation and we want to generate taxes directly as well as indirect taxes. It runs in thousands and crores of indirect taxes and direct taxes when we have the mining sector opened. So this is what is required today. Land acquisition is another big issue. Then the farmers issue is another big issue. So all these issues can be addressed with a very, very transparent policy formulation at the level of government. And of course, the industry must try to adapt whatever is asked for. So this is what I can explain.
I'll go with the same question to Mr. Sundaramam. I remember a few years back, Mr. T.V. Narendran had said that responsible mining is a mindset. And with the correct mindset, you could actually change the entire landscape of mining in India because it's so mired in controversy. Your take?
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Mr. Narendran has mentioned, because we are not only a steel player, we have been one of the biggest mining players also in India. And some of our mines, for example, Navamundi, 1924, we started mining operations. We have been operating for last 100 years. So as our Jharia coal mines, we completed 100 years in 2019. So we always believe that communities, the social license to operate, we need to get that respect from the communities. Once we get that respect from the communities, your operations have been absolutely smooth flowing. This we have seen, because I said out of 30 years, 27 years, I stayed in the mine areas only. The intent is honest. And if there is deployment on the ground and people rally around you, the community support you, and you can do wonders. That has been my take. And the way the CSR 2% and all has started of late. But Tata Steel and the mining wing of Tata Steel has been spending more than the CSR spent over years. That is the thing. That's why today we feel very comfortable operating in far remote areas, whether it is Navamundi, Joda, or West Bokaro for that matter, and Sukinda and Bamnipal. These are the areas. But we always have our footprint there. We not only produce, we also have our ecosystem there. People are with us. We take care of the communities, whether it's education, whether it's sports, whether it's a cultural transformation. We wanted to preserve the culture. For example, just to give an example, Ho script we have brought in, that why can't we increase Varin Kshiti? So we have been asking the Mukhyas and all the people to come to classrooms and learn Ho script. So these are some of the things we want to be connected with people. So today we are not away from the community. That's why we feel very comfortable. And that's what Mr. Narendra meant, that it is a mindset. If I say that there are hurdles, then always I would look at them with that eye only. If I feel that they are part of the system. For example, just only 20 days back, we have selected 23 women for operation of our HEMM, the 100-ton dumpers, all of them from the local communities. And they have been, even in the interview, the enthusiasm which they have shown, and the way we have got the welcome move from everyone around, it's really encouraging for us. So these are some of the issues. If we don't take them along, if we wanted to be an island of prosperity, then I'm sorry, we can't do that. We can't do mining in India. We need to take them along. That has been our practical experience. It is not that something which I'm just speaking about. So I feel we need to take them along, and that is a thing. And definitely the policies are helping us. It's not that the policies are not helping. Unless you have their take, unless I explain him what does a public hearing mean, what does an environmental clearance mean, what does a Gram Sabha mean to them, and how can they give us so that we can also give them back if I increase my production and all. So these are the way we have annual business plan internally. We have an annual operating plan external with all the Mukhya, Munda, and Maki. We have every 6 months. So every quarterly we have. You asked these things, we have done these things. And this is the thing which we are going to complete in next 3-6 months. So we have the plan. So because of these things, I think I always felt practically I have seen that we have the respect and we feel that we are credible. Whatever we speak, we do there in the ground, we get that social license to operate.
Awesome,
that we have faced in also.
Absolutely awesome. I've also been to Jamshedpur and can sense the respect. And Mr. Mishra, you have also been part of Tata Steel right? So you're part of that legacy, and it's quite awesome. But tell us about Hindustan Zinc. The same question to you for Hindustan Zinc in terms of community engagement.
So community engagement is prime in every mining location. No mine can sustain operations unless they engage with the community around. I guess what Mr. V.R. Sharma was referring to is there is a lack of transparency on the information. The district mineral fund money that the miners deposit, only thing government needs to do is put out that information in public. That is every month come transparent in front of the society, put up that information that for your information, this particular mine has given so many crores to the mineral fund. Total fund value is this. These are the projects in this district. That will assuage a lot of anxiety among the people, because people around do not see this. They know that mining companies are paying some taxes and duties, but they don't see what is the fund value, what are the projects being done on that money. And once they come to know that, a lot of things will be assuaged. Otherwise, what happens is we do CSR, and the world thinks CSR is the only way through which mining companies are contributing. They don't see the huge amount of money is locked up in mineral fund, which they are contributing, and the spend pattern is not transparent. Nobody sees that amount. There is no disclosure to the public that these are the projects, this is the fund given, last month production so much, fund given so much, and projects are this much. Just put out that on any kind of medium and in public, you will find huge change in people's perception about mining.
I'll go to Mr. Timlo. What we saw in Goa really is that how, the entire sector there got mired in perhaps propaganda-driven activism. Do you think dialogue is the only way out? And how do you think the government and the miners there, the private players there, could collaborate to harness the natural resources that we have in Goa?
Well, thanks for that question. I'll just, interestingly, all the main mining companies, us included, as well as Vedanta, but much before the District Mineral Fund even was law, we created what was called the Mineral Foundation of Goa about 15, 20 years ago, wherein which all the companies would contribute a corpus and initiative and projects for empowerment, infrastructure, everything would be taken up by that foundation. And that continues to do so today. And that's how the industry continues to work together and has worked before. Of course, now things like District Mineral Fund have made that that kind of initiative through deposit of money in a fund then is going to be educated by the state government. At the same time, I agree with what Mr. Sonam was saying also, is that if you have to have the intent. If the intent is to do the right thing, and our industry has been working in Goa for the last 75 years. We've gone through two sovereigns, which was the Portuguese, then to India. We've been through different market situations, different economic environments, and there has never been a shutdown of mining ever till recently. The issue is, then your question was on where is the narrative and should there be dialogue? The question is, Goa has the suspension of mining happened due to a particular NGO. I believe that the narrative usually is discussed in every location other than the location of operation. And the people of that operation are not part of that narrative, because this is being educated by people who don't come from the mining area, are taking up so-called public interest litigations in forums that are not at all ever seen these mining areas or what these mining areas develop or based on. So I believe in the course of time, statutory and judicial forums need to also test the authenticity and the bona fide of the party making the complaint. At the end, so of course, we are in continuous dialogue at the ground level. Goa is actually, as all of you know, such a small state. So everybody knows what everybody else is doing. It's not that it takes you a day and a half, 2 days to reach site or anything like that. You're from one end of the mining belt to the other, you reach within 2 hours. So there's constant dialogue. And I believe aspirations of people will always keep changing. There's not going to be a fixed scheme that's going to keep people satisfied. As generations change, their aspirations to be better, earn more is there, and that requires continuous dialogue between the operator and the community.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Timlo, for it. We've completely run out of time, and we'll go to Vinod for his final words to sum up the great discussion that we have had today. And I'd like you to propose a vote of thanks as well.
No, thank you, Suchetna, and thanks to all my co-panel members. I think this has been a fantastic discussion. I think hearing directly from you, as from your practitioner lens, having lived this and lived that responsibly, I think has given us a lot of insights from all of you individually. And the key thing that resonated very well, personally speaking, is the authenticity that came out in everything that you talked about. Having interacted with some of you personally in this arena and seen your companies work in this direction, I can vouch for the fact that this authenticity is the thing that will drive all of us in the future. And that's a very important point. Just to, summarize or reflect on the things, there is optimism from outside in terms of the environment. There is technological capability available to us to make fundamental changes in the operations to get the right output. There is an imperative on social responsibility that has been further accentuated. And today's time, you're not thinking about compliance. You're thinking about, as some of you mentioned very, very clearly, about development, about engaging the community and taking this together. Just like technology cannot be an island, mining symbolizes that it cannot be an island. It has to work in the ecosystem of the communities. And the right to operate comes also from how you take that responsibility. So it was excellent listening to these points. I think the next key set of things will be to really put the right capacities in place faster, responsibly, and fundamentally look at the cost structures as we have discussed in some of these parts, leverage those capabilities to march forward together in this journey. And as Amber, you also mentioned during, there was always potential, right, in the sector. Now it is the time to realize that potential. From being mineral rich to becoming a mining giant is what we as countrymen aspire to be. And that's where I will like to end this on a note of positivity with all of you. And my sincere, heartfelt thanks to all of you for being a part of this discussion and sharing your invaluable insights. So thank you so much for your time. And Mr. Chetna, allocation back to you.
Thank you very much.
Vinod, and that was a wonderful session, really one of the most intense and in-depth sessions that Suchetna and I have moderated, to be quite honest.
Yes.
And a deep thanks to all of you, Mr. Timlo, Mr. Sundararaman, Mr. Mishra, Mr. Sharma, and David, Mr. Burns, Vinod, and Suchetna, my co-moderator. I must say that we keep exchanging messages with our team members, and you all have found a lot of fans within our team today. So hopefully we will be able to take that forward. We will be in touch with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Nice
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Bye.
Thank you.
And thank you to Accenture for this opportunity. Bye.